There we go. All right. So looking at Module 2 Learning Plan, I'm going to click there. Module 2 Learning Plan, the things that we're going to be doing here is we're going to be creating user-defined part template. That's actually going to be in Chapter 4. That's going to be the beginning of the next chapter. We're going to continue to create sketches, extrusions, and cuts, and just get more looks at that and more practice in this module. We're going to be using the feature design tree and looking and being a little bit more intentional about how things are arranged there so you can kind of understand what's going on. And then we're going to learn how we can change the names of created features. Right now, they just give a generic like extrude or a cut or extruded cut. And what we want to do is I'm going to show you how you can actually change those to be like a 1.5 inch diameter hole or the base, feature or something, because then it'll be easier when you want to go back in and want to edit those. Okay. Or if somebody else needs to or wants to edit your work. And then we're also going to be looking at selecting a material and looking at the mass properties. And again, that's going to be a Chapter 4 item for us. So the things that we're going to be doing here, we're going to be going through by the time we get through Module 2. Today, we're going to be focusing on Chapter 3. Thursday is going to be Chapter 4, but both of those combine to create this one module. The only reason I have in here is Chapter 3 and Chapter 4, and I have SolidWorks 20XX because each year it gets updated from 2023 to 2024. And rather than having to go back and remember to change it each time when I do this module, I kind of just do the XX. So we're in 2023, as you know. For our practice problems, we're going to do a tutorial from each one of these chapters. The one we're going to be working on today is going to be the locator, and that's in Chapter 3. And then the saddle bracket is going to be in Chapter 4 the next time we get together. And then for this particular module, same as Module 1, you're going to kind of see this repeat itself throughout. We're going to have practice problems for Module 2 and assignment number 2. So one practice problem is going to be the locator and the saddle bracket. Okay. And then again, the assignment's going to be from both Chapters 3 and 4. So what I want you to understand is that we're not going to get through everything all today intentionally. I don't want to overload you with information. I want you to get a little bit here from Chapter 3, practice, and then on Thursday, we'll get some more and then we'll practice. So the expectation here is not that at the end of my lecture today that you're going to have all this stuff. So between today and Thursday, you'll get everything you need. Okay. So, any questions right now on kind of our learning plan and what we're going to be doing? Okay. Then, let's just go back a level, and underneath the learning plan, you're going to notice it says session recordings. Now, obviously I don't have any there here yet because we haven't done these, but today's is going to be populated here. If we just peek back at Module 1 session recordings, you may or may not have gone back through this. If you're here and you don't feel like you need to go back and look at the recordings, you don't have to. Some students do. Or if you're ever, like I said, when we did our syllabus or our course overview, if you're ever unable to make it, this is my expectation for you to watch these videos before coming to class the next time if you can. But you'll notice here that I have, the date, June 11th was our first date, and this was the Module 1 adjuster tutorial that we did. Okay. And then as we go through here, you're going to notice that we did some demos on specific end of Chapter 2, specific parts that you had for your assignments. So I recorded each one of those separately as well. Not a requirement, again, for you to go over those unless you've specifically missed class and weren't able to be here for the lecture. The expectation is that you're catching yourself up. But if you want to go back out here for reference a little bit later, I'm going to be doing that very same thing here in the modules to come. That's what the session recordings are. And then lastly, you're going to notice that I always indent whatever is our assignment. So Module 2 practice problems and assignment 2. So if we peek here at Module 2 practice problems, you're going to notice we're going to be doing the locator, Chapter 3, and the saddle bracket, Chapter 4. I kind of did a little bit of a change on the description because of some of the things that we discovered when we were here last week. You can submit a PDF, a JPEG, a PNG, and a Word doc. And all of those I am able to pull up and actually write on. Do not unless I ask for it specifically, do not hand in your part file from SolidWorks, okay? And the reason I don't want that is because I have to pull it up. We get away from Canvas. I can't like make my markups on there. And what I think is really nice is when you can go back into your assignment and actually see what I marked up and where the things are specifically, you know, rather than just relying on whatever my notes were. So we'll practice this again, or it seemed like it went well for everybody last time. So hopefully you kind of got a system, but if you have any questions with this, let me know. And then just some special notes here. Just keep in mind that for these practice problems, these are tutorials that we do in class. I fully demonstrate these during our lecture, okay? Sometimes I leave out an item or two from the tutorial. There's actually one section in here that we're not gonna do intentionally, okay? So make sure that you know exactly what's required for those tutorials to go through. And again, they're your practice. And what's nice about those is these books have the step-by-step and they correlate to what's on the software. So I think it's really nice to have this written kind of recipe, if you would, to go through. Make sure that you take notes on formatting and submission requirements. After these first two modules, I think you're going to get the hang of it. I'm not going to really change how you're going to submit, okay? The assignments are going to change based on commands that we go over and things like that, but using the PDF, JPEG, PNG, that kind of thing, that's how we're going to always submit each time. Points will be deducted for missing formatting or requirements that I talk about during our practice time. Practice problems are only submitted once. Again, module 1 and 2 are the exception to that. I do allow 2 if you need them, just as we're getting used to what we're going to be what I expect from you. And then also the practice problems are not accepted after the 7-day grace period though. Once we get past that, you just get a 0. Okay. So that's the practice problems. And then our assignment number 2. It says up here, do not complete this assignment until after watching all of the lecture demos. Okay. Because again, I'm going to give you insights on what I'm expecting. It's not always just draw what's at the end of the chapter and I'm just going to hope for the best because you think you're being efficient. Okay. And I'm not doing this to trick you, but I want to make sure that we have good practices under our belt. And that's what I'm preparing you for. Okay. And so I want to make sure that you do the practice problems first to get the gist of what we need to do. And then again, using this time to ask questions and make sure that you know exactly what the requirements are. So try not to resist that urge to jump ahead just to the assignment because you might not be as efficient as you think you are because if you miss something before handing those in, or getting through all of the lecture time and the demonstration time, then unfortunately, then you're going to have to do things over. Okay. And that's no fun. So for the first part here, these are from chapter 3. I picked 4 of the 6 at the end of the chapter. And then in chapter 4, I picked 4 of the end of chapters as well. Okay. So I didn't do all of them from each one of the sections just because when I looked at combining both of them for this module, it felt kind of like a lot if I would do that. So I think 8 problems is going to be good. And then it'll be handing in the very same way. All right. Now our assignments, each one of those is worth 10 points. So the total for this assignment is going to be worth 80. So that's module 2 in a nutshell. All right. So what I want to do now is let's jump in and start looking at our tutorial. So SolidWorks, I already have my SolidWorks open. I'll let you open up SolidWorks. And I'm going to expect that you open up a part. So you should be pretty familiar with that process. Okay. And I'm going to kind of go underneath here. Now, again, when we're here in a class, you are welcome to follow along with me to do the demonstration here or the tutorial, but I don't stop for everybody, you know, as we go along, just because otherwise it might take us a long time to get through things. If you find yourself not keeping up, that's okay. You have the right, we're going to have time when I'm done with our demonstration for you to work and you can always catch up later on. So you can just kind of stop, relax and watch the demonstration and then you can always catch up later. Okay. All right. Did everybody get into SolidWorks okay? All right. And I'm hoping our chat box, I'll kind of look here. All right. So we're going to start in our book. This is chapter 3. Chapter 3 is about constructing solid geometry. Okay, so they're getting a little bit deeper into kind of, how parametrics work and how we, how we kind of devise our parts. All right, it is different than 2D. So, so if you've done SolidWorks, or I'm sorry, AutoCAD, for instance, that's basically just kind of like drawing like you would with pencil, but on a computer. Okay, it's really the very same thing. You don't get into, I mean, there are ways you can do three-dimensional, but for the most part, AutoCAD is a 2D kind of like just an XY type of atmosphere, where parametrics is that solid modeling and what we call associativity. Associativity means that if I make a change and I create my model and I make a change to it, it's going to update automatically. But if I already have a drawing of it, or if it's in an assembly, I think I mentioned this last time, it updates in both of those places as well. I don't have to manually go into the drawing or manually go into any assemblies that it's in. It automatically updates it for us. And that's the power and the efficiency that parametrics offers. Okay. Now, when we're creating our geometry, okay, they're kind of talking here about primitives and joins and intersections, cuts and such. And as we look here, what we're going to be doing is these primitives are just going to be basically cylinders and, if you would, a block. Okay. And as you can imagine from our experience that we had last week with module 1, we would go in and we would sketch first a circle, and then we would extrude this a depth. And now we've got a cylinder. Okay. Over here, we would go in and we would sketch, for instance, a rectangle, and then we would extrude it a distance, and now we've got a block, okay? Now, we can start joining those together or having those intersect, and if you recall, and again, we didn't go too deep into this last time, but when we were doing our extrude and we were adding on to something, we would have to make sure that what was checked was merge, I think it was merge items or merge solids, I forget exactly what it said, but merge something. And what that does is it brings these two separate primitive solids and it makes it one, so that it's a continuous piece of geometry, if you would. Okay. Same thing when we cut something. If we cut something out, it removes that material. So it doesn't like double over the material if they intersect with one another or join together. They just remove it. And now it's one, whatever's left over is what the material is. Now, we're going to be looking at, and this starts on page 3.5. This is going to be the part that we're going to be drawing. This is the locator for chapter 3 here, okay? And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking an approach. I'm going to turn the page one more time. And we are going to first start by creating a block. Then on the end of that block, we're going to create, and we're going to add a cylinder to it. And through that process, we're going to join those together. Join those together to make the shape that you see here. Okay. Now, as we look, this is kind of like, if you would, the base before this slot gets in there or the hole goes through the middle. Okay. So it's kind of like a solid item. Once we have those two primitive shapes, we're then going to cut away the parts that we don't need. So we're going to be putting a hole through the cylinder, and we're going to be creating this slot or this cutout in, I'm going to call it the foot. Okay. So you'll notice here that we've got this joint together. We're going to cut out this cylinder from the center, and then we're going to cut out another cylinder for the rounded portion of that slot. And then we're going to cut out one more portion to that cylinder, or to the cylinder, in order to create that kind of like half of a slot, if you would. Okay. So that's going to be the process that we're going to take. Now, when we're creating models, we want to try to take the most efficient route, but we also want to think of ease of making changes and editing. Inevitably, we're going to have to do that, whether it's a copy from and we want to make another part and maybe it's just a different size. If we try to put too many features in one sketch, it starts to get hard to manipulate and make changes. So we're literally going to start with our rectangle, extrude that base. We're going to add the circle on the end or the cylinder. We're going to pull those together. We're then going to cut out our cylinder on the tall part. We're going to then create another cut on a hole. And then we're going to add the cutout going, if you would, vertically along. So that means we're going to be creating 1, 2, 3 for that cutout, 4, 5 separate features on our design tree. Okay, and we're going to kind of be watching that design tree as we go along so we can see how those things are created. Okay, so that's going to be our process that we're going to take. Now, the tutorial officially starts on page 37. Okay, so here is starting SolidWorks, and it says activating the command manager. So if you've already done this already, I'm going to kind of peek over at my SolidWorks. The command manager, I like to just call it, it's the ribbon that's right here. That's all that is. So it's where all of our commands that we're going to be working with are going to be. So if you need to activate that command manager, remember, you're just going to go anywhere up on the top here, right click, and make sure that enable command manager is checked. Okay, I'm always going to be using that command manager or that ribbon up on top to show you, because I think it's just a nice, easy, convenient way of doing it. You can work with these menus here, but it's just a lot more clicks. Okay, so so make sure that that is enabled, because that's what I'm going to be using as we go through, and that's where our tutorial starts. Okay, and then it has you go through and open up the part, and then we're going to turn the page, and you're going to notice that it's now going to have us go into the drafting settings and set this up with English units, and they're using 2 decimal places. As I said, the last time we were together, that is very arbitrary. I like to do 4s and 5s because inevitably we're going to have fractional dimensions that we have to put into a decimal, and a lot of those end up being 4s and 5s. So I'm going to go back to SolidWorks. Okay, and before I get started here, I'm just going to scooch my chat over here-ish. Down at the bottom here, you're going to notice that this says IPS, that's inch, pounds, and seconds. So that means that we're in the units that we want to be in. Okay, I think, wait a second, let me double check. Oh no, this is a metric one. Yep, this is a metric. So we need to change that to millimeters. So we're going to click this little triangle or arrow, and we're going to go to MMGS. Don't go to meters, go to millimeters. This one is a metric model. So MMGS. Then we're going to go up here to our settings, and we're going to go to document properties, just like we did last time. Make sure that your overall drafting standard is set to ANSI and not ISO. Okay, so you want to be on ANSI. If you need to, arrow down here. And then we're going to first look at our units. Let's go to the units right away. Down the length, down the decimals here, again, I have mine set to 5. You're going to see those for mine. So, you know, if you want to do 2 like they're doing, for millimeters, you probably don't need 5. So it's not a bad idea to put it to 2. I'll match the tutorial. But when I'm in English, I'm usually 4s and 5s. And then the other thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that our dimensions are in ANSI form. And again, I'm not sure why SolidWorks doesn't do it. Kind of drives me crazy, because on our system or on our drafting standard, we have it set at ANSI. But now we have to go into the dimensions. So you need to hit that little plus mark to expand this out. And we're going to click on, I don't think we need angle, but we're going to need our diameter. And we're going to have to change this base diameter dimension standard to ANSI, from ISO to ANSI. And then we're going to have to do the same thing for the whole call out, from ISO to ANSI. And what you notice changes about it is ISO goes along the direction of whatever the leader is. ANSI keeps all of the notes, and anything that we're dimensioning, the numbers are always horizontal. That's part of its standard. Linear dimension, you also want to go from ISO to ANSI. And then radius from ISO to ANSI. Okay. And I think we should be okay. So now we should be able to hit the OK button at the bottom, and those should be all set up for us. And that way, when we start doing our smart dimensions, they're not doing like, at an angle and you have to turn your head to read them. Okay, so let's kind of go back to our tutorial. And we just got done with the bottom of page 3.8. Now, the next section here, 3.9. On page 3.9, it says grip and snap intervals. Do not set those up. You will never use them. Yes, they are possible. You can use them. If you ever used AutoCAD, it's something that AutoCAD does. And sometimes when you're new, it's kind of nice to do that. But what it'll do is it's going to restrict you to only click at certain intervals. Okay. Just don't set it up. They even say here down here, note that the above settings set a grid spacing for SolidWorks. Although snap and grid option is available, its usage in parametric modeling is not recommended. Okay. So again, I think they're just presenting it, letting you know that it's there. We are not going to do it. All right. So we're going to skip over that. So we're going to start our base feature right here. All right. Right here. So, so we are going to turn the page. Okay. And we're going to talk a little bit about the order for which we're going to do things here. Now, when we create parts, sometimes you can kind of tackle them from different angles. Okay. I don't know that there's ever the perfect right answer on how you're going to do something. So for instance, what I mean by that is if we go back to our original part here, whether you start by creating the cylinder first or the bottom base as that foot first, really doesn't matter. Okay. So again, this could go first or the circle could go first. All right. But we can't put a hole in place until we have the outside cylinder here. So that one, actually, we can't create a hole in space. Does that make sense to everybody? You have to have some sort of a solid first. Same thing with this slot here. We can't put that slot in place until we have the base. So in that sense, fundamentally, we have to have kind of our solids in first before we can start taking cuts away. All right. So, so what we're going to do here is the way that the book approaches it, we're actually going to do the base first, the rectangle. Then we're going to add the circle or the cylinder solid going through. Then I'm pretty sure it's going to be the hole going through the cylinder next, then another hole, and then a cut going back. All right. You might say, well, why don't we do it where we look down at the sketch and we actually create this whole outer portion so that we don't have to create then the slot in there. Again, I go back to, if we ever want to edit this, maybe we want to make a part that has no slot in there. Then all we have to do is delete a couple of features and my base is solid. If I don't have those individual features there, now I've got to go back to the sketch and actually completely edit it. It's going to be a little bit more work. So even if you think adding individual features might take a little bit longer, it's in the editing or in the possible like duplicating and changing things for families of parts where it becomes actually really nice to have the individual features. Okay. So that's going to be the approach that we're going to be taking. And you're going to notice that's going to be the order that they do things. So, so they just talk about here the order of features and then thinking about that ease of making modifications later on. Even though we're always just about making the part right now, you also want to think ahead for modifications. So separating out those features makes it easier to work with later on. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to really create that rectangle. So I just want to first show you where we're going to be. So at the bottom here, we're going to create this rectangle. This is going to be on the front plane. And we're going to make it, you're going to notice over here, they give us our dimensions, 75 long and 25 high. Now, you're going to notice that if you look closely, I'm not sure if you can see it on the screen, but if you look closely in your book here, this is where our origin is. We are not going to start our origin all the way past there. We're going to start our origin. We're going to start our lower left-hand corner of our rectangle at the origin. Okay. You always want to tie your first feature to that origin. Otherwise, it's not going to fully define. You're going to be like, why isn't it fully defined? It's because you don't have a dimension back to the origin. All right. So by starting with one of for instance, like in this case, the corner of the rectangle, at the origin, you take that out of the mix, okay? So we are gonna start by creating a rectangle in our front view with the lower left-hand corner at the origin. It's gonna be 75 long and 25 high. So let's go back to SolidWorks. And we are gonna start by, now, there's two ways that we can go about getting into that sketch mode. We can do one of two things. We can go into sketch right away, which is what the book does. Or I like to say, I like to go in on my extrude. It saves me a couple clicks later on when I go in on the extrude and I exit my sketch once it's fully defined, then I go right into extrude mode and I can give it however deep that I want it to go. So that's the way that I'm going to be showing you, but you could start with just a sketch by going strictly over to sketch. But we are going to be on our feature tab here in our ribbon, and we're going to click extrude boss base. Notice extrude cut and hole wizard and revolve cut. None of those are available to us because we don't have anything to cut into yet. All right. So that's why you're going to notice they call this context availability of the different features. Or the different commands that you have. So because we're just starting, the only thing that we can do is we can like create something right now. So an extrude boss base or a revolve is what we can do. So I'm going to click on extrude boss base. And now over on the left-hand side, it's saying select the plane that you want to create. And we want to actually sketch on, and we're going to sketch on the front plane. So we're going to hover over it. It's going to activate and we're going to left click on it. And now what you don't see happens is it takes that piece of paper of that plane and it makes it parallel to our screen right now. So it's kind of like we're drawing on a piece of paper that would be the front plane. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we could go around and do individual lines all the way around, but I want to show you that we have a command right down below. It's called the corner rectangle. And with 2 clicks, instead of 4 going all the way around, we can create a rectangle. So I'm going to click on corner rectangle, and I'm going to go down over here, and I'm going to hover over my origin until it activates with that orange little dot. Okay. Once it activates, I'm going to click with my left mouse button. And now as I move out, I'm not dragging. I just clicked and released. And now I'm just moving this over up and to the right, and I'm going to click and release a second time. And now I've got a rectangle on my screen. Now I can do one of 2 things. I can either hit the escape key, or I can click, because it's kind of like to accept. This is good. Or you can hit the green check mark up here in the upper left-hand corner. It's like, yep, that looks good. Now you're going to notice a couple things. Number 1, it's underdefined. Okay, down here at the bottom of the screen, it says underdefined. I'm going for fully defined. The entire outside of this is light blue. Okay, and in front of my sketch 1, there's a parentheses with a minus sign. All of that tells me I am not fully defined. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to add some dimensions here. Now, something I do have in place are these green boxes with these horizontal and vertical lines. So if I zoom in here, I see these guys right here, here, and here. These are called relations. These are called relations. For those who have had Creo, then those were called constraints in other software. They can be called something else, but these are called relations. And what these relations do for us as we created that, SolidWorks like assumed, oh, you want these lines to be horizontal and vertical. Okay. So when you are creating things, you're going to see these kind of populate in. But more often than not, when you put all your dimensions on and you're like, why am I not fully defined? Check for this kind of stuff. If you don't have that horizontal line in, you can add it in. So what I'm going to do is, before we start adding our dimensions, and this is part of what we're diving into a little deeper this week, is looking more at these relations. Okay. So I'm going to select on one of them. And I can just have it selected, it's blue instead of green, and I can hit the delete key on my keyboard and it went away. All right. But then I'm going to show you how you can add them back in. So to add it back in, or if you notice it's missing and you need to add it, up here under display/delete relations, if you go down and you arrow down, you can add a relation, okay? So I'm going to click on add a relation and a new box over on the left-hand side comes up. It says add a relation. It wants you to select an entity. That's what it's looking for here. It wants you to select. And when I do that, I'm going to select this line. I'm going to left click it. Don't go over the point, go over the line. I'm going to left click it. Notice that it populates into that box as line 1. That's what it's called, that horizontal line there. And then now that I have that selected, it's going to give me the options for what I can actually, put on there. It doesn't have all of the different relations available to me because it's not tangent. It does not equal to, there's a whole host of them, but these would be available to me. And the one that I want is a horizontal line. I'm going to click that relation. And then once it's in here and I can see, okay, that looks good. I'm going to click the green check mark and say, okay. Now, sometimes you might add a relation and it's going to give you all these errors. That means that you probably over defined something. Yeah, you can over define. There's that perfect spot where you're fully defined. So you're either under defined, over defined, or fully defined. Okay. We're not going to focus too much there, but if you run into that, you have to then probably undo something that you did and kind of go back and figure out, what's the best combination. So those are relations. Those are what those green little boxes are. Now we need to add our dimensions and tell it define how long and tall these items are. So I'm going to use Smart Dimension again. Remember, underneath Smart Dimension, you have this whole host. If you wanted to say, I'm going to use a horizontal dimension, that's fine. But what's nice about Smart Dimension is once I do one dimension, if I would do horizontal here, I could only do horizontal dimensions going forward. All right. But Smart Dimension allows me to, when I pick the item, it kind of picks what the best one is. Okay. So I don't have to go back in and click. It kind of saves me clicks. So I'm going to Smart Dimension. So down here, you're going to notice that we have our little dimension symbol next to our cursor. And now I'm going to go over that horizontal line. Remember, don't go over the point, go over the horizontal line. I'm going to left click and I'm not dragging. Don't drag. Just click and release. And now I'm moving this dimension to where I want it to go. And I'm going to left click and release that second time. Once I do that, I get this editing box and now I can input the length of 75. So 75, enter. And now it kind of proportionally sets up that length for me. I'm still in dimensioning mode and I know I am because I've got that dimension symbol right next to my cursor. So I can continue selecting other some other entities if you would. So I'm going to go over whether it's this one or that one, does not make a difference. I'm going to left click on that vertical line. I'm going to pull it out over here and I'm going to left click to place that dimension. And this is going to be 25. Do not go point to point. Click the actual piece of geometry, the line in this case. Okay. Now you're going to notice something that happened. The entire outside went to black and down here it's saying fully defined. Okay. So that's our goal. So I'm going to green check mark on that dimension. And you're going to notice that I'm still in my sketch. So when I have fully defined here, I am ready to exit. Now, something you're also going to notice next to the sketch here is there is that red and green stop and go light. That's called regenerate or rebuild. Regen or rebuild. So a rebuild, all it's saying is please rebuild the sketch so that it kind of updates itself. You won't always see that, but sometimes you will. So I'm going to hit the rebuild. When you hit the rebuild, even though we went in under the extrude, it kind of starts everything over. So that means that I have to go back onto my sketch. And what you're going to notice out here on my design tree is my sketch does not have that parentheses with the negative because it's fully defined. But now I have to reselect that and go to extrude boss face to extrude this sketch. I'm going to click on that. And now it's going to assume a direction and a value. Okay. So in this case, you're going to notice that it's coming towards us, which is fine. This direction doesn't really, especially on our first value, it's totally fine. And then, I just wanna see what our number is. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna X out of our extrude boss base. And we're gonna go into our sketch. I'm sorry. I forgot about this. So I'm gonna click on my sketch, left click on my sketch, and we're gonna edit the sketch. Edit the sketch. I forgot there is a step here where they go from 25 to 50. So they want to show you how at the sketch level, you can simply double click on a dimension. Because this is the width. And we are going to go 50 millimeters high. Enter. And now notice that it extended or made that wider for us. Okay. To get this all in my screen, I'm going to hit F, or you can hit the all the way over to the left, the zoom to fit. I'm going to hit F. Okay. So here's our sketch number one. I apologize. I forgot that we need to do that little bit of an adjustment. And then now what we're going to do is we are going to extrude this 15 millimeters for its thickness. So at this point, because I'm still fully defined, I can exit my sketch. I'm going to select the sketch, go up to extrude boss face, and we are going to extrude this 15 millimeters. 15 millimeters. So you'll notice right now the default is 10. So we just need to go over the top of that. When it's selected, it's in editing mode, 15, and you can hit enter, and you're going to notice that it increases its thickness. And I can simply say, okay, because that looks good. Whether it's going towards you or away from you, it doesn't really matter. So now what we have is, and I'm just going to left click over here. We have our kind of our base feature. Okay. Any questions on that? So a 75 by 50 is your final dimension, and it's a 15 millimeter thick block. All right. Now, let's say we wanted to look at those dimensions. If we wanted to look at those dimensions, we can expand out our boss extrude one. So this is just a generic name. So we did an extrude boss base, so it's calling it boss extrude one. So it like means really nothing to anybody. And then here is our sketch. If we select that sketch, you're going to notice that it adds the dimensions for us. At this point, as we saw last time, if I move this around with my middle mouse button, I'm holding it, dragging, and then I'm going to release. I could double click on any one of these and change them also at this level. Okay. Or I can go back in and I can edit the sketch to get back into that sketch mode ribbon, if you would. Okay. But I'm going to left click off of that. Now, they don't have us do this here on this part, but I'm going to introduce it here now so that you get used to it, because you will be doing this for all of your assignments. So you'll notice that, like I said, this is a boss extrude one. I want to select that and right click it. When I right click it, you're going to notice at the bottom here, it says rename tree item. Click on that, and it goes into an editing text mode. Okay. So what I'm going to call this is I'm going to call this the foot. I like to use all capitals, so I'm just going to call it the foot. Then I'm going to hit enter. And now what it's done is, instead of just calling it that generic boss extrude, we're calling it the foot. The only thing I want you to rename on all of your sketches to give it something meaningful is at the feature level. You don't have to rename the sketches. Okay. So notice this is going to stay at sketch one. That's okay with me. I just want to make sure I know that the feature is what it is. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to left click in my graphics area off of that. Are there any questions right now? So we've got our 50 by 75. We've got our feature renamed, Katie. Okay. So you're going to left click on, and you're going to right click, and you're going to go down to rename. It's almost all the way to the bottom of the menu. I can come and look. left click off of that. Go left or right, left click in, right click. Go down. No, no. Oh, I think it's supposed to be in sketch, so go back over here, go to your feature, definitely over there. There you go. Great, thank you. You're welcome. All right, anybody else? So make sure that you're on the feature tab to rename the feature. Okay, and I'm going to left click to kind of get off of this. Now, you'll notice that up here at the top, as we saw last week, it starts each one of the parts and it just gives it a generic name. So in this case, it's calling it part 1. And then that asterisk means that we haven't saved since we've made some changes. So now's a good time to do a quick save. So we're going to go to File, Save As, and then you're going to navigate to where you want it to go. Now, I'm going to put mine on my OneDrive. Hopefully, did everybody bring a jump drive this week? Awesome. Okay. So, so make sure that you have that. And then, because the OneDrive, it was erasing it last week, right? I haven't gotten an answer back yet. I tried calling today because I knew, but I haven't gotten my answer just yet. So somebody said they would be back to me within 48 hours from when I made that request, but, I tried again today. So anyway, so, I have mine module 2. You can decide how you want to do it. And I'm going to call it Locator Tutorial. And I'm going to call this 1 because I've made this one before. And I'm simply going to hit save. Remember, this is going to be the file that you're going to be uploading or getting the screenshot of for your practice problems. Okay. So now you're going to notice that up in the upper right-hand corner here, it went to Locator Tutorial or whatever you called it, Locator at least. Okay. And it shouldn't have an asterisk because we haven't changed anything since we've saved. Okay. All right. So let's go back to our tutorial and see what we're going to do next. So if I zoom out here, this is on page 313. We've got our block drawn and we have our block as a solid. So I'm going to turn the page. Okay. Now we took the time to do a save, and now what we're going to add to that front part is we're going to actually add the circle or the cylinder that's going to be coming up. So you're going to notice that between 314 and 315, they start creating that circle or that cylinder that's going to come up. Okay, so let's go back to SolidWorks, and that's going to be the next thing we're going to work on. So we are going to do another extrude boss face because we're going to be, again, adding material. This is going to be the cylinder going up. We're going to extrude boss face. Now it's asking us select the plane or the planar face that you want to actually be on. And we just want to be on this front face here. So once we're kind of hovering over it, you'll notice that it outlines with orange, and we can then left click and activate it. So now it changes its orientation so it's straight on for us. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to draw a circle. Don't do an arc. We have to do a full circle because that circular part is coming up, you know, through the piece. So we're going to click on the circle command, and we are going to now draw a circle. Notice I have a circle on the end of my pencil, and I'm going to go along this line until it activates and I see the center point of it. That's going to be the midpoint. That is where I want to activate the center of my circle. So I'm going to start there at the midpoint of that line, and then I'm going to activate and get to the end point of that line. See where that orange circle is activating that end point? I'm going to click that. Now, why do I want to do that? I want to do that because now the diameter of this circle is tied to the width of that part. So if the width of that part changes, my circle changes with it. Okay, that's exactly what I want it to be. So I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to do Control middle mouse button and kind of shift this over a little bit. And you'll notice that if I look down here and if I click off of my circle is black, and down here at the bottom, it says fully defined. And I have not added a dimension because I've tied the center to the midpoint of that line. and the radius of this diameter to the end of that line. So it will always be whatever the width of that part is. So if my part changes from 50 to 70, that circle is going to change to the same diameter. Okay. So I'm going to hit exit here because I'm fully defined. Okay. And then you're going to notice that because I went in underneath the extrude, I'm going to zoom out here a little bit and I rotate this. Okay. You'll notice that it's going in the wrong direction. It's all going on one side. So as you know, if we look at the direction here, I can change or flip the direction. So I'm going to click on that and it's going to go from the bottom. And it's remembering the last time that I put this in, the distance that it extruded was 15 millimeters. I want this to extrude, and this is where I got to find my number. Whoops. We're going to extrude it 40 millimeters. So we're going to leave this on blind. That means it's just like a distance. And I'm going to select over the 15 and I'm going to enter in 40, enter. And now it's going to preview for me what it is. Okay, so I've got it here. So now you're going to notice that I've got my cylinder going up. It looks good. And I want to make sure that I have checked merge result, because now what's going to happen is instead of having two separate cylinder and block, they're going to merge together to have, you know, just a solid material on the inside, if you would. Okay. And then we're going to hit OK. All right. So now what it automatically does then, it sets up for me and I have these nice like little tangent points here. So let's change the name of this Boss Extrude 2. I'm going to left click on Boss Extrude 2, make sure that you're at the feature level. Boss Extrude 2, left click, right click, rename. And we're going to call that the cylinder. And you can just hit enter and it's renamed. I'm going to left click out here to unselect it. I'm going to expand it. And you'll notice that both of my sketches under ETH1, we're going to leave those as sketch 1 and sketch 2. And you'll notice that there isn't that parentheses with the negative sign. That means it's fully defined. Make sure these are expanded and renamed for your practice problems, okay? These are the little things that I change, if you would, as we go. And I want to make sure that you're following along. All right, so now we have this in. Notice we have our asterisk at the end of our file name. So I'm going to do a file save. It's going to remember where we saved it to. So it'll automatically then update it. So we are all set. Okay. So now the next thing that we're going to add, okay, is we are going to, so we're right here at the bottom of page 316. Okay. And now we're going to go to the top of page 317 and we're going to be adding in our cut feature that's going to be the hole going all the way through. Okay. So we are going to go underneath the extrude cut function and we're going to make a circle at the top here and we're going to extrude that cut, take that material away all the way through that cylinder. Okay. So going back to SolidWorks over here, I'm going to control and kind of pull this down a little bit. Instead of extrude boss base, I want to extrude cut or extruded cut. I'm going to click on that and it wants me to select the face or the plane. And it's going to be, I'm going to start with the top of my cylinder here. So I'm going to click on that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to draw a circle, a center circle. And what you want to do is you want to activate the outside circle here. I'm not clicking on it. I'm activating it. I'm only going over the top of it to like be like, there's a circle there so that now when I get close to its center, it should activate that center. Okay. Now I haven't clicked yet. I'm just hovering over the top of it. I moved my cursor over the top. And once I get there and it shows up, I want to click because now it's going to share the same center as that cylinder. Okay. And then I'm going to go out and I'm going to make a circle about that big. Okay. And then I'm going to hit OK. Now notice that at the very center here, there is this green box. This is one of the relations. Okay. And notice that I'm going to go back. I'm going to hover over and it says coincidence. This is called a coincident relation. It means that the center of the circle that I just drew and the center of the cylinder down below share the same point. They're coincident, okay? So if you don't have that, you can go up to, I'm gonna actually get rid of it. I'm gonna get rid of it, delete it. I'm gonna move this over. Okay, so maybe I put my circle there, but now I've got to make the center of my circle and the center of my cylinder coincident. So I'm gonna go up to this display delete relations. I'm going to arrow down. I'm going to say, I want to add a relation. And I'm going to select my entities. I'm going to select this circle and I'm going to select this circle. And now notice what happened is it said, oh, which one of these do you want? And I want these to be concentric is fine. And then we can say, okay. And now it's got that relation added. I'm going to left click out here to unselect those. I'm still not fully defined. What am I missing here? I've got my location. My location is good. But now what do I need to fully define this circle? I need the diameter, right? That's the dimension I need to add. So I'm going to go up to Smart Dimension. I'm going to left click on that diameter. I'm just going to pull it out. You could go this way so that it's a horizontal dimension, or you can go up and to the right or down and to the left or over, and you can make it a leader. And you're just going to left click wherever you want it to go. And we're going to add our dimension. I'm trying to remember. It's 30. Okay, thank you. 30 and then enter. And now we've got the diameter of 30 going up and to the right there. Now, if I accept that dimension, you're going to notice that I went to fully defined and my circle is black all the way around. So that is exactly what I'm going for. Okay. You'll also notice that the minus sign went away from the front of my sketch. I am not going to hit my rebuild because I don't want to go outside of my, when I hit my exit, it's going to go right into my cut mode. And that's what I want to do. I don't want to miss out on that. So I am going to middle mouse button and rotate this because I want to make sure that it's going in the right direction. And it is, it's going through my cylinder. Now, if we look at how it wants to extrude this, it wants to extrude it on blind because that's the last one that I used. But if I change the height of this from 40 to something else, remember that hole potentially would not go all the way through anymore. So I'm going to change this from blind. I'm going to arrow down and we're going to just click on through all. And now it's still going to look exactly the same. It's not going to be any change. But now if I change, I'm going to hit OK. And now it's all the way through. And what we're going to do is before we do what I want to do next, I want to expand out my sketch with cut extrude selected. I'm going to right click. I'm going to rename that tree item and we're going to call it 30 millimeter hole. Okay, 30 millimeter hole. Now, to illustrate what we just did, okay, I'm going to go back up to my cylinder here. Do not do this. I'm just going to demonstrate something with that through all. So I'm going to go to Edit, Feature, and all I want to do is I want to change my extrude from 40 to 80. Okay, I just want to make it much taller. Sure. All right. I'm going to hit OK. And now you're going to notice that that hole is still going through because I did a through all. All right. If I would have kept it at blind 40, I would only have a hole that was 40 deep here. All right. It wouldn't be going all the way through. Now, the reason that works is because my cylinder is in the order that it was created before the hole went in. Okay. If these were created in different orders, you might see something else happen, but you can always change the order, but I don't want you to do that. Worry about that right now. But my hole couldn't have gone into here unless my cylinder was created. So the cylinder is kind of like what we call a parent to the child, which would be my 30 millimeter hole. So the parent would be the cylinder and the 30 millimeter hole would be its child. Does that make sense to everybody? I mean, just kind of terminology wise, if you see that in there, okay? Now I'm going to go back to my cylinder. I'm going to change that from 80 back to 40 and then okay. And then it's still going through. A good time again. I just created a new feature. I'm going to do a file and a save. And now my asterisk went away up here because I've saved within the time that I've been doing things. Okay. So now then I have 2 more features to go. All right, 2 more features to go. We're going to be creating the circle here for that slot. And then we're going to be creating the section that's going to be, I don't know what we're going to call that yet. That's going to be the cut, if you would, going back through. So, so let's catch ourselves up on our tutorial. Here. We are now here, right? Now what we're going to do is we are going to create the small hole over here. Now we are going to use something called the hole wizard. All right, for this one. So this is a new way to create a hole. All right. And the hole wizard is really nice, especially when we start creating drawings and we want to ensure that we are using sizes that go along with standard drill sizes or taps or whatever it might be. So the hole wizard is really nice. So we're going to use the hole wizard for this next one. The diameter of that hole . 20 millimeters. Okay, 20 millimeters. So I'm going to go back to SolidWorks. And instead of, we could go in and we could create a sketch and we could put the circle and do the extrude cut. All right. But let's use this hole wizard. I want to show you how this works because it's pretty slick. So we are going to, I don't want to have anything selected on my design tree over here. We're going to just go up to hole wizard. Okay. Hole wizard. Now, you're going to notice over on the left-hand panel here, we've got a whole bunch of hole types that we can pick from. We can pick from a counterbore, standard countersinks, blind holes, tapped holes. What is this one? I'm not sure. Oh, this is a tapered tap. All sorts of kind of standard stuff. The one that we want to go to is going to be just a plain hole. Okay, this is not a tapped hole. It's not a counterbored hole. It's not countersunk. It's just a hole that's going to go through. So we're going to click on that. So make sure it's activated. It kind of changes the background. You can kind of see it's selected, but just make sure it's selected. And then you're going to notice that it says what the standard is going to be. If I arrow down here, there's a number of different standards, and we just want ANSI metric. Okay. And we want it to correspond with the drill sizes. You could change these to something else, but we want them to be just the standard drill sizes. This way, when I pick up a set of metric drills, one of these is going to be in that set. Okay, as long as I have a full set. We can do the very same thing for inch increments as well, as you can see there. All right. Now what we're going to do is we want to specify the hole. So if I arrow down here, these are going to be all of the millimeter increment standard drill sizes. All right. And we want to pick 20 millimeters. All right. Now that takes care of specifying the hole size. Now we need to specify the position, and this is where it gets a little tricky. Okay. So the whole information is in there. That's good. Then we're going to go over to the tab on the top here. So type is going to be all the whole information, and position is where we're going to put it on the part that we have. Okay. So it wants us to select the face. So we're going to go over here and we want it to be right about in here. So I'm going to select that face, and now it changed that position for me. And now you're going to notice on your end of your pencil, you have this hole. All right, I have not clicked anything yet. I'm only kind of positioning it, and I only want it to do is to be about right there. Click. All right. Now, if you keep clicking, you can keep putting more holes in there, but I only want this one. So don't click again, just click once. And now what we're going to do is, and this is where it's a little weird, you go straight up to Smart Dimension. Don't hit anything else. Just go straight up to Smart Dimension. And now you switch over to a dimensioning mode. And we're going to dimension from one edge. Don't grab the point in the middle, grab the line. We're going to go from that edge. It's going to think line, but now we have to go to its center. Remember, second click, and then a third click, we're going to place it. And we want that to be at 25 right in the middle, 25 millimeters. We're still in the Smart Dimension mode. And now the other dimension we need, 30 from the end, right? Yep, thank you. So I'm going to go from this line right here, left click it, then I'm gonna go to my center, left click it, and then I'm gonna pull mine up. You can go down and I'm gonna left click there, and that's gonna be 30, enter. And now I have it positioned where it needs to be, okay? Once I have those two in place, you're gonna notice it goes to fully defined, perfect, because I've got my diameter set by the hole wizard on that other tab. I've got the location now here set, my X and Y dimensions from the position. And now I can click the green check mark. And now I'm still in the position. And if I like these numbers, and I do, I'm gonna hit OK. And now it places it there for me. Now, the other thing that it does, let's look at our design tree. Notice that it put in here and it automatically called it a 20 millimeter diameter hole. I don't have to rename it. I know exactly what it is. Additionally, I'm not going to create a drawing of this one right now, but if I would take that next step and create an actual drawing of this, that note would come in automatically and I wouldn't have to do anything with it, which is kind of nice because it remembers it from the hole wizard. Okay. So that's there. I'm going to do another file save for that. Now I have one more feature. Oh, and I'm also going to say, you don't need to expand. There are two sketches here. You don't need to, I want you to. I want to make sure they're fully defined. It is important because if you do miss a dimension in that position, so make sure you also expand out your hole wizard. So make sure you do a hole wizard. Don't do this as a 30 millimeter diameter cut extrude. I want you to use the hole wizard for this one. Okay. And that's in the tutorial. I'm going to left click over here to unselect that. I have one more feature to do. So let's go underneath here and catch ourselves up on our tutorial. So at the bottom of page 321, here are those two dimensions, 25 and 30. And then here were all the values for the type. And then now we hit OK and we've got our hole in the bottom. The last part we're going to do here is we're going to create a rectangle extrude cut that is going to create that cut for the, if you would, kind of creating the slot. So how we're going to do this is we're going to generate a rectangle on the edge and we're going to position it so it's centered and we're going to then extrude cut back to our hole. So let's see how we do that. So I'm going to rotate this with my middle mouse button and I am going to be sketching on this surface right here. So I'm going to go up to extrude cut because I'm going to be taking material away. Extrude cut. I'm going to select on this plane right here. I don't like the way that looks. Mine went in a weird direction. So what I can do is I can change, I think. Let me see here. That one, that one, that one. Maybe I'll just leave it. Or I could go into the view selector. Maybe I'll do that instead. So let's look at this view selector up here. So I'm in the middle of my hands up menu, view orientation. We're going to arrow down and we're going to go over to view selector. I think we can do it in here. Okay. And what it does is it puts this cube around my part. And what I want to do is I want to orient this so that I'll see this like this. So when I hover over any one of these sides, we're given a view in the upper right-hand corner. And I want to orient this if you need to, so that my base is horizontal. Does that make sense? You see that? Mine was vertical for some reason. I'm not sure why. So I just want to orient it. And again, I'm positioning this around until that's about there. Okay. If yours did it, that's totally fine. And now I'm looking straight on that view, and I'm going to create a rectangle. And I'm going to go down at the bottom here. I just wanted to start somewhere along this line. And then I'm going to go up and somewhere along this line. I want it tied to the thickness of that base. Notice that I have my verticals and horizontals here. So I can hit OK on there. And I'm going to add my smart dimensions to the width. Oh, it's doing it. That's okay. To the side there. And I want that to be 20. And then from one edge to the other, I want this to be 15. You can do either side, the left or the right. We're just wanting to center this. So when I do my cut and I extrude cut this back, it's going to be the right size. And 20 was the size of my hole. So I want that width to be the very same and I want it to be centered. So I can hit the OK button for my dimension. I am fully defined. So I can hit exit. And now it's going to do my cut. So I'm going to position this right now. Now, at this time, it's remembering the last time that I did an extrude cut that I did through all. I don't want this to be through all. I could do a blind if I wanted to, maybe 30 to that center, but if I move that hole, it wouldn't still go to the center of the hole. So instead, I just want to do up to next. So let's click up to next. And you're going to notice it goes up to the next feature, which is the hole. All right. And that looks good. Now, if you need to change the direction, you can flip it. Okay. But mine went in the right direction. And then I'm going to hit OK with that preview looks good. And now you're going to notice that we have that end cut done. And that's what we'll call it. We'll call it the end cut. So I'm going to left click off of that left and then right click and go down to rename. We'll call it end cut. And then expand out your sketch. That's sketch number 6 for me. Yours might be different if you kind of, maybe stopped and started along the way. That's okay. I'm not worried about the number of the sketches, but make sure that your first feature is the foot. Second feature is your cylinder. The third feature is the 30mm hole. The next one is going to be that 20mm diameter hole wizard hole. And then the last one is the end cut. All of your sketches need to be expanded and all of them need to be fully defined. No parentheses with a negative in front. Okay. Now I'm going to do another file save. And then I'm going to hit Control, I'm going to middle mouse button and drag over. And then I'm going to make sure that I can rotate this just enough so that I can see that the hole is going all the way through. This gives me a look at all of the features, if you would, that we have here. All right. Now, the screenshot. Couple different ways we can do it, right? You can do the snip app, the screen snip app, or you can do Windows Shift S if that works for you. That's the way I like to do it. So I'm going to do Windows Shift S and I'm going to go up to my upper left-hand corner. All right. I am going to grab everything, including the feature design tree, all of those, making sure that the sketches are expanded out, and I'm going all the way over to the left. So I include the part name as well. So make sure Locator is up there, or Locator tutorial. And then I want to make sure that I have the model in there. So all of this needs to be on there. If you just do the model, it's a 0 because I can't see the stuff I need to make sure you're fully defined. Okay. So there that is. Now, if you do it the way I do it, I go into Word and I go into a document and it's on my clipboard and all I do is a paste. Okay. And you can right click and you can do a paste that way, or you can just do Control V. That's going to paste it as well. Okay. You don't need to add your name here. I can see that the file name is Locator. And now all you have to do is do a file save as, and you can call this module 2 practice problems. So I'm going to browse to where I have my stuff saved. You're going to browse to where you're saving. Module 2, and this is going to be mod 2 practice probs. And you can call it whatever you want, truly. That doesn't matter to me. I just want to make sure when I pull it up, I can see it there. Now, this is just one of the images that you need for your practice problems. This was the chapter 3 practice problem, the locator. We are going to add one more to this when we go over chapter 4 the next time we get together. Okay, that's going to be the tutorial that we have there. So right now, just make sure that you have this saved somewhere where you can retrieve it. Don't put it on your OneDrive if you're here. Unfortunately, yes, it does not save there. And I will find out why. So hopefully you brought your jump drive, okay, to get it saved there as well. So now I think that's all that I need. I know that I saved this already. Are there any questions? I'm going to check our chat box here. Are there any questions that anybody has in regard to this tutorial? Yes. Okay, I can look at that with you, us individually. And then I'm going to look one more new message. Nope, Russell said, okay. Anybody else have anything right now? If there are individual things, I'm happy to go over those because then we're going to be kind of in our lab mode, if you would, the rest of the evening. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this recording and I'm going to be calling this the tutorial for the locator. So I'm going to go down here. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to stop the recording at this